Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Obsidian Mirror, where we pause a moment to reflect using symbol systems such as the tarot. I am going to do a mirror reflection read today, and we will discover what the cards want us to look a little bit closer at. So while I shuffle and select, now might be a good time to connect with your body if it feels safe to do so. That could be a classic, timeless, always useful body scan. Could be some deep breathing, some jumping jacks, grabbing a snack, a comfort item, or a beverage. Today I am having my sweet and spicy coffee, so maple syrup and cayenne. It's one of my favorite ways to drink coffee. Has anyone else had it this way? I highly recommend it. It is super tasty, good times. 15 out of 10. You definitely need to try it if you like spicy. Yeah, I drink my coffee in many different ways. It is a mood thing, mood coffee. How do you take your coffee? Is there something conventionally odd about the way you do your coffee? Maybe it's not according to your culture in some way. Oh, we're gonna go with that one. Oh boy, okay. In one of my previous videos, while I was recording, there was a daddy longlegs that came to say hi, which I thought was absolutely delightful. I love spiders. And the daddy longlegs was very, I don't know if I can say curious, but spent a lot of time around the outlet I use for my charging block, which I thought was interesting. And it made me think about graceful balancing act, perhaps even one that we do while we are recharging in some way, or the very act of recharging can be a balancing act, one that requires grace. And so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I adore spiders. So take that, Ron Weasley. For any of you HP nerds out there, quite controversial author. Definitely not a fan of hers. Oh my goodness. Okay, I guess that's the one. Anyway, that's my generation, in case anybody was curious. Interesting how this card was facing the other direction from the rest of the cards. Definitely wanted to be seen. At least that's how it feels to me. I want to thank you all for being here and the time that you are choosing to spend with me. The channel is growing a little bit, slowly, but hopefully for surely. I'm still gathering the confidence to be here, trying to learn how to trust my voice and not second guess myself. So you being here means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. I'm going to get into the spread, but before I do that, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths, and you can take them with me, starting now. So for the current state, we have the Ace of Swords, which gives me that 0 degrees of Aries energy, that initial spark, pure inspiration, perhaps an idea that forms with excitement before we can form the words to describe it. This is initiation energy, quick ignition, represented very well, in my opinion, here by the lightning. The very, very, very beginning of something. It is like a sudden realization. It could be also the muse that many creatives sort of play hide and seek with, chase after. In my opinion, this is definitely more of a sensed feeling, like right on the edge of an idea. It's like that sudden dawning, like, oh, like the light bulb moment, right when the light bulb goes off, before we can really, before there are many details or any details at all. This is the I get excited just thinking about it. And I also get a little bit frustrated when I try to describe it, because it makes me think, you know, with this infinity symbol here, that I can talk for ages and ages and ages about what this sensation is like and never be able to describe it in a way that is satisfying. That being said, I'm going to move on to the active pattern, and we have the vow archetype card that is very off axis, closer to upside down. So I am getting a sense of either neglect of some promises or the desire to make promises. This could be promises to a situation, a way of being, someone outside of ourselves. It could also be promises to ourself. Either promises that we have let go by the wayside, or promises that we want to make, but have not yet for whatever reason. I'm going to move to the unseen, the avoided, the shadow, which seemed very persistent to get into this reading. And it's the Knight of Wands, or the Abandoner. Now, the imagery on this card is particularly flighty. A bird made of hands, looking down as it flies away from X, Y, or Z. There's a sense of quick movement and perhaps quick movement that is more instinctual than thought through. This could be quick moving mental energy where we want to learn and learn and learn and learn, but that insatiable desire for knowledge doesn't stick to one subject for very long. So there is a opportunity for depth of knowledge that is just not being utilized for some reason. It could be novelty seeking. It could be getting enough of an idea about something and not feeling the desire to go any deeper, and that's okay. It could also be a relational abandonment of some kind. Preferring to keep things light, to keep things on the surface, and when things get too heavy or too deep, then that's the boundary crossed and it's time to go. I am thinking about somebody who potentially self-abandons as well. And this is in relation to the vow card. I'm wondering, where have we recently let ourselves down? Where have we not lived up to the promises that we have made to ourselves, witnessed or unwitnessed? It is easy to escape accountability when we are the only ones who are capable of holding ourselves accountable. If I promise myself not to drink any more coffee and tell no one, then I can drink as much coffee as I want and nobody can stop me. The only person who will know is me, and I'm the only one who has to carry that broken promise. If that makes any sense at all. I'm going to move on to the guidance, the possible integration point. And we have the Eight of Wands in reverse. And so this is the fastest moving card, shown here as a strike of lightning into a pile of kindle. It makes me think of flash fires, wildfires, unintentional fires. But this card typically represents fast communication. so fast that we maybe don't even register the weight of it until the messenger has gone or the situation has passed or morphed somehow. It is potentially life-changing in a way that we cannot register at the time of communication. In the reverse here, I get the sense to slow down. Perhaps there is no reason to be moving as fast as we are in some way. It could be a call to maybe think over the promises that we may have made in haste. Maybe we felt passionate or overwhelmed and we made a declaration that we meant with our whole heart at the time, but now could go for another review. Perhaps a redefining, a renegotiating, or a promise we made that we can let go of. To bring it back to my coffee example, I have been telling myself that I will stop drinking coffee for quite some time. But it is so delicious, and I'm not hurting anyone. And it's really not that deep. It's just coffee. But if you're somebody who is intuitively sensitive, somebody who is capable of sensing more subtle or unseen energies, somebody who could be called psychic maybe, you might understand the consequences of caffeine in whatever form it is in. I say as I drink my coffee. Anyway, that was a very light-hearted, very shallow, very low-risk example. And I don't want to minimize some of the promises that we have made to ourselves that have some very real, very definitive consequences. We all have a certain amount of responsibility in our life, and I do not take that lightly. I think that this spread overall is asking us to review some of the promises that maybe have been made in haste or overwhelm or anger or pure intentions, but are maybe not as sustainable as we had hoped for, and where we might be able to relieve some tension or pressure around those things without feeling like we gave up on it, or we gave up on ourselves, or we have turned ourselves into a liar or an abandoner. It is okay to let go of some things. On the other side of this, I wonder if there's an impetus to get back to our vows. Perhaps this is a religious observance. It could be quite literally a vow you have taken, perhaps with God, with a partner, with self. And how do we let go of a sense of flightiness, stop beating ourselves up for a mistake or a lapse in judgment, and release the weight of guilt so that we can more swiftly and more genuinely approach our promises in a way that is more aligned again. Because sometimes when we make a mistake or mess up somehow, the guilt is what drives us back to it. And so there's a sense of heaviness and distance, of being forced back into service of some kind. Perhaps this is someone who, just as an example, let's say someone who had a meditation practice or a prayer practice and for whatever reason did not meditate or pray for a day, a couple of days, a couple of years maybe. And there's a sense of delinquency and guilt that has been compounding, overwhelming even, and making them feel like they can't possibly go back. They might as well just stop entirely, etc., etc. Or perhaps guilt drives them back to do it, but now it's off. Because the reason for meditation or prayer is no longer a connection with the divine. It is to assuage guilt. And so the intention is different. And so that is going to color the connection. That is going to make this vow, which was once a sacred thing, a fraught thing now. It's going to be more of a punishment than a connection, if that makes any sense. So, with all of that being said, I think that this reflection read is asking us to review and refine the promises that we have made so that we can get back to the original inspiration that drew us to make these vows in the first place. To slow down and reconnect with the original inspiration, and to let go of any guilt that we may be carrying in regards to our relationship with these promises so far. Accidents happen, we make mistakes, we have low energy days. There are 1,000,001 valid reasons why we may have quote unquote strayed. There could also be 1,000,001 reason for us to experience the contrast between the honorable route and something different. And now that we know the difference, now we know what it feels like to stray, now we know what it feels like to let ourselves or others down. How do we get back to the original inspiration, the pure intention, in a way where we can honor our experience? I'm going to close the reading with a deep breath, and you are more than welcome to join me, starting now. Thank you so much for taking the time here with me today. If there's anything I've said that has been useful or resonated with you, please let me know by liking, commenting, subscribing, or sharing. It really helps me to refine my process, and I value any feedback that you have for me. That being said, maybe I will see you again here on the Obsidian Mirror.